Today's class should be a little bit of fun because I'm going to be a huge dork. I'm going to try to mimic the classroom even more than I usually do. So I will do some drawing. We'll change angles a lot, right? So please, this will be fun. And you'll see why I shut off the comments on YouTube, because I don't want to hear what a dork I am all the time, right? Okay, so today we are going to deal with what is called Plato's Metaphysics, right? So let's start with the basic vocabulary. We will give two terms that you are supposed to learn when you take an introductory philosophy class. This isn't a memory style class, but please write down these definitions, right? Let's explain. So, when we talked about philosophy, starting all of the major disciplines that you think of and that you respect, right, and you don't make the pizza joke about, right, we listed all these different disciplines. Now, notice, philosophy predates all of these disciplines. Philosophers have a long history of breaking down different subjects into two basic areas called metaphysics and epistemology. Yes, fancy words. Now, what we will often see happen is we will have words that have been taken from philosophy and used in weird sort of ways. So for instance, the topic of metaphysics, right? It originally means what the philosophers used it to mean, but now if you go on YouTube or Wikipedia, you might see some crazy definitions about what metaphysics is. Probably some religious cults call themselves metaphysicians. Anyway. Basic definitions here, right? Let's use my little fake board. Metaphysics is the study of reality. So when you deal with a metaphysical question, the basic question will always be, is it real? What is it made of? What is its structure? Right? And so when philosophers are looking at other subjects, such as chemistry or physics or engineering, we consider those to be metaphysical questions, questions about what is reality like. Basic. Then we could talk about epistemology. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. So the key question here is, how do we know? What is perception like? What is, now notice, psychology would primarily be a subject of epistemology for philosophers. So we're always dividing up subjects in this way. Now, let me give a goofy demonstration to show you that this is actually a very intuitive way to think about things. All right, so another one of my absolutely goofy analogies. This is fake, but I'm going to pretend to take this seriously. You guys, I have gotten into real trouble with the administration. I have been doing something to you that is illegal, and they tell me immoral. I'm just kidding, of course. I have to confess that each time you watch these videos, I have used a spiritual incantation to make a little invisible propaganda pixie join you when you watch this video. So as you're watching, a little invisible pixie is in the room with you whispering propaganda. It is saying things like, care for the poor, we need universal health care, Jeff is wise and good, listen to him and obey him. Now, I've been told that it's illegal to coerce students in this way, so I am so sorry about the pixies. All right, break. Now, as you're listening to my little story about the invisible propaganda pixies, what were you naturally thinking? The first thing you were thinking, right, and I hope you are a little nutcase talking to me in these videos, the first thing you were probably thinking is, that's not real, right? That's just a cute little story. That's fantasy, right? Now notice what you did. Probably your first question was a metaphysics style of study saying, that's not real. And then some of you, the punks among you, are saying, Jeff's such a dork, or else he's high, or else he's gone mad. Good? Now notice what you're saying when you're accusing me of being high or crazy. You're now doing epistemology. You are now asking questions like, why does he think that's real? How does he know these things? And of course, back to metaphysics, they're not real, so his knowledge is all screwed up. He must be hallucinating. Perfect. So you see that. You have these basic words as intuitions when you think about anything. We are always asking, is it real and what is it like? And how do we know? How do we find out things like that? That's normal. All right. So now my first transition, right? This is going to be so lame. Get ready. Let's go to my desk. All right, so welcome to my version of PowerPoint. I hate PowerPoint, right? But we do need pictures, right? So look, it's just like I'm here. So we are now going to do a basic overview of metaphysics. As you're in school, you're supposed to be learning radically diverse differences of opinion, and what you're usually taught is, here's what they dress like in this country. And look, here is sushi. Now, of course, I love food from all over the world, but that doesn't really give you insights into other people's beliefs and how they think or live. So, we are going to do a basic overview of metaphysics, and you have to draw. If you don't draw these pictures, you won't get the brilliant teaching I'm going to be using here. So let me now give you advice on how to take notes. All right, so here's what I want you to do. We are going to take notes in this chart, and if you draw the pictures, you will get some really deep insights. But so first, let me use this piece of paper as if it's going to be a whole board, and so you decide how you want to do this. If I was you, I would put this whole thing on one piece of paper and just write really small, because it's going to be a lot of picture-based learning. So if this was a classroom, I would immediately divide my board in half, right? And I would have 3 separate columns on this side divided in a line. So this would be the whole board in a classroom. Over here, we are going to put the Plato discussion of Plato's cave, right? You're supposed to read first, so you read that. So we're going to tell the Plato story over there. And over here, we're going to have our discussion of what we'll call Metaphysics 101. All right, so I am going to now take a piece of paper and just grab this side. But if I was you, I would do this all on one piece of paper and just write small, but turn it on its side in this way. All right, so ready. So here we go. So now I'm just working on that left side of my chart. Let's separate our board into 3 areas. Go ahead. Now, what we want to do is this is our discussion of reality. So we are going to divide reality, just so we can talk about it, into 2 levels. We will talk about the transcendent level, and we will talk about the physical or the material level, right? So 2 stories of reality. This is the best way to capture all the different opinions people have about what is reality like. Go ahead. All right. So first, on this far side, we have what's called materialism. Now notice, like I said about metaphysics, these are the original senses of these words, but they now have adopted multiple meanings. So when I say materialism, I am not talking about that gold-digging skank that tries to take all your money. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I just said that. We are using materialism in the philosophical sense, in the most strict sense, right? Not making fun of people for being gold diggers or selfish. Good? All right, so you must draw. Oh, sorry, we need to do a quick little sidebar. I need to get you used to how I draw. So, little quiz, we'll call this the legend for how I draw. I draw terribly. First, this one should be really easy. What is this? When I draw that, what is it? The sun, of course. Right? I'm only going to be drawing things that I could draw. Now, this, when I draw this, this is no longer the sun, that is now God. Good? I need a way to draw God, so it'll be like a sun with a beard. All right, let's go back. So, in order to understand materialism, you have to draw. So we will begin by drawing in the top shelf. So this is the transcendent realm of reality. We need to draw with dotted lines, right? So draw a little dotted line. This will be fun, right? It's like a kid's program. You're trying to figure out what I'm drawing, right? Can you see that? Really hard to see, right? A lot of dotted lines. That is God, but draw it with dotted lines. Now, we're going to put other things in there just so we have more things to think about. And so I'm going to draw a dotted line version of this. Now, this will tell me how you use the internet based on what you think this is a drawing of. Good? All right, can you see that thing? So what do we have? Dotted line angel, dotted line God. Good? Now, When we get to the physical realm, a lot easier to draw. So here we go. These are the things I can draw pretty well. You're a good drawer if people can tell what you're drawing. So I'm great because you can tell that's the sun. What else can I draw? I can draw trees. I can draw a person. I can draw a cat. Sorry, my cat's as big as my person. Good. All right. So we can ask right away what a materialist thinks is real. Good. So to the materialist, obviously, the physical realm is real. Now let's use their sort of language, though. What would a materialist think of the reality, notice metaphysical question, of things that are transcendent, of things that are spiritual, or in this case religious? Now, of course, just like in the real physical realm, there are more things than just these four things. What exists in the transcendent realm will have a whole bunch of different ideas depending on what the context or religion or beliefs are. These are just my placeholders. These are just some examples of things that might be there. But use their sort of language. Think like the materialist. What would the materialist say about things like angels, which a lot of Americans believe in, and God? They would say not just these aren't real. They would say that these are... Oops, sorry, pen is not dark enough. These are illusions, right? These are fantasy. If you believe in these things, you are deluded. You are living in an illusion. You are like a child who believes unicorns are real. No offense if you think unicorns are real. So this is the materialist idea of reality. Let me go to a different pen. Now, no reason I'm going to blue. It's just hopefully blue's better. So now let's look at another metaphysical belief, right? This is the belief in idealism. Again, we use the word idealist to refer to a lot of different things, but I'm using it in its original sense, and this is what it means. Now notice how this will be to draw. So in the top transcendent box for idealism, you will draw God. Notice we don't need the dotted lines anymore. And now you can see, right, what this is more clearly. By the way, what did you think that was? If you thought it was a porn star, you're a terrible person. That was supposed to be an angel, right? So now let me draw this a little more carefully. Good. Always smiling. Needs a halo. Good. Now, when it comes to the physical realm, now we have to go back to our dotted lines. So for our dotted line sun... Oh, that's so easy to tell what that is. Right? Then you will need a dotted line tree. You will need a dotted line human. Oh, that's so easy to see. And you'll need a dotted line Fifi the cat. Oh, beautiful. Right? Now, so we ask this question, and this is pretty interesting. For the idealist, what is real? What's real? The transcendent is real. Again, this doesn't mean idealists believe in God and angels. Those are just examples I could draw. That is not a jellyfish. That's God, right? These are just examples I could draw. They think the transcendent realm is real. And what do they think of the physical realm? What do they think of us here drawing on our piece of paper, in a classroom, in my office? What is physical reality? Well, now notice again, they would say the same thing the materialists would say. They would say this is the realm of illusion. If you believe these things are real, you are like a child. You think things that are fantasy are real. And now, and remember, on our paper, this will bleed into our Plato discussion of Plato's cave. So this should be a continuation, because now we can talk about dualism. The dualist is the easiest to draw of all because a dualist thinks both levels are real. Don't misunderstand there. There are often conceptions of dualism, most common, would put more reality in one level or the other. So maybe think of early Christian teachings in the New Testament scriptures. They would say, this realm is more real than this one, right? Pay all your attention to the soul, to God, right? And pay little attention to the physical realm because that is all decay, right? That has no value, right? But now, look how easy it is to draw. Again, just examples. We can draw our angel. We can draw God. We can draw our sun. You better be drawing. If you are just watching me draw, you're a terrible person. We can draw our tree. We can draw our person. We can draw Fifi the cat. And remember again, this will just continue because Plato's view, the cave, is a dualism. It will only make sense if you see it as a dualism. So now we can ask the dualist. Dualist, what is real? They will simply say, well, the transcendent is at least somewhat real, the physical is at least somewhat real, but both are real. Both have reality in them. Now again, the way the modern Christian lives, to further that example, would be to say, okay, well, all of our concerns are here. We put our little not of this world sticker on our Mercedes that we paid a lot of money for. So clearly we care more about the physical than we do the spiritual or the transcendence. But they would still say that's real because I meditate every 2 weeks in order to get through my capitalist job so I can afford a more expensive Mercedes to drive to church. Okay, sorry, we're going too far. All right. But both are real, and Plato's cave will be a dualism like this. Now let's have some fun with diversity. What percentage of people in an ordinary classroom, right? So let's say this is our 30-member classroom like we would usually have, and I can ask you to raise your hands and ask, all right, how many of you are materialists? How many of you are idealists? How many of you are dualists? And of course, you would see, what would you basically find? Out of 30 students in a United States classroom, you would say probably a few materialists. We would be lucky if we got one idealist, right? That would be very cool, but rare that we even have one. And then the vast majority are dualists, right? You think there's something real about the transcendent, and then you would say, obviously, the physical realm is real. But let's ask this of the world. If this class was being taught in the global perspective, how many materialists would you have? Now, here is where Americans think that, yes, it is true in America. We have much more beliefs in spiritual beings like angels than other parts of the world. But there aren't as many materialists as you would imagine, right? Now, there are a lot, right? But it's still not too different than the number that you would find in an ordinary United States classroom. Maybe a little more, though. Maybe 15, 20%. Idealists. Now that seems crazy to Americans. How can there be idealists? Well, there are these very tiny places called India, called Vietnam, called Indonesia, right? Where the basic religious standpoint, whether it's Hinduism or Buddhism or things like this, is an idealist standpoint. That the transcendent realm is the real realm. The physical realm is delusion and passing, right? And shouldn't be taken seriously. So this often is 30% of the population of the globe, something like that. Now, of course, because of the dramatic spread of Islam and Christianity, dualism is like 60% of the population at any given time. So that is the most popular conception. And this leads us to Plato's conception. But when you look at those, that gives you an appreciation of how it is to be of a different culture, a radically different conception of what is real and what we should do about it. Now we're ready for Plato's dualism, right? So watch the special effects. Watch how good I am at PowerPoint. So now we're going to go from dualism, right, to Plato's version of dualism. You'll understand more about the cave story this way. So now let's tell the cave story through pictures, right? If you love this, God help you, right? I won't do this very much longer. All right. So now let's transition to Plato's dualism and tell the story of the cave. So yes, it's story time. This is what pictures are for. All right, so we continue our line, remember? So this is the transcendent realm. Now we understand something much more important about what the cave is trying to say about inside and outside of the cave. Because look at this, right? So now leave a little opening, right? This is how we'll get in and out of the cave. And now we have a basic dualism discussion like we had, but now we can tell Plato's cave story. So to draw the cave, right, what I typically draw is first start with a really jaggedy line, because Plato says that this is the journey of philosophy, right? It's a long and arduous and painful journey to get up out of the cave. This is the study of philosophy. Wait till we start studying things like Heidegger, and then you'll realize, ouch, this is painful, this is difficult. Now, what I draw is what is like a clog or something, right? So it looks like a big clunky shoe, right? Give it a deep, long heel like this, and then a big area in the front of the cave, right? See, like a wooden shoe. In the back of the cave, let's start there, right? And now I'm going to make this as realistic as possible. On the back of the cave, there is a little fire, right? This is what's producing the light in the cave. Oh my gosh, look at how realistic this is, right? So put some fire in the back of your cave. Ooh, don't worry, this isn't real. The paper's not really on fire, right? That's just a drawing. Now, next, we have these people, and Plato doesn't say much about who they are. You could call them politicians, right? You can say that it's me and my friends doing this to you, right? Maybe this is the news, right? As far as Trump's concerned. Now, there are these people standing in this little recessed area, and they are holding up pictures of things, right? Now, I'm going to have them holding up things that I know how to draw. So here comes my tree again. They're holding up a picture of a tree. Let's have a couple more of these. Let's say this person is holding up a picture of a cat. Good. And so, you've read the story. You better have read the story, right? And now we come to you. So now notice the light is projecting, right, from above this little raised area. So you can't see the people. You can only see the shadows reflected on the wall of the cave from these images. So you're getting these shadowy images of cats, right, and trees on the wall. Now, let's bring in the people. Give me 3 people we can talk about, right? So let's have 3 people sitting on chairs. Good. Now, their whole lives, as Plato says, is just watching the shadows on the wall. This is all they do. They're chained to be staring forward. So we need 3 of them. So you better be drawing. If you find some entertainment by just watching me draw these things, oh my gosh, you are the easily entertained person. So we need 3. So there are 3 people. Now, we need to get rid of one easy misunderstanding here. Good? Some people would tell the story of the cave as if the cave is the story of when we're being deceived. So the cave is us in a movie theater or playing a virtual reality game or some kind of deception like that. No, the cave isn't the story of when we're deceived. The cave is the story of the everyday physical world we live in every day, right? So don't think of the cave as some special propaganda, some special delusion, right? This is the everyday world we live in. So right now, you are in the cave. When you drive to get takeout food, when you sit in a regular classroom, all of these events, when you're on your cell phone or off your cell phone, you are in the cave, because the cave is, notice, the everyday physical world, the ordinary world. All right, so now let's tell more of the story. This person, let's focus on the person sitting in the second row. You are playing what Plato would call the shadows game. Your everyday life is paying attention to these shadows being projected on the wall, and you think they're real, so you're highly invested in them. These are fashion, this is, intellectual pursuits, whatever they are, it's all in the cave. Now let's talk about our second person. As you see the little tree and the cat show up on the wall of the cave, you say different things because you're an ordinary person, right? Bright enough. And you would say, oh, look, a tree. Oh, look, a cat. I like cats. Let me go on the internet and look at more pictures of cats. Well, this person here, they say, oh, you are so immature. That is not a cat. That's Philinicus onomicus. And that is not a tree. That's Fernium anonymum. And they have fancy names. And, now this is a direct quote from Plato's story, they can even predict the comings and goings when they give them these fancy names. What do we call that person? This is the scientist. What is a scientist according to Plato? The vast majority of scientists are just experts in the shadow game, because that is the physical everyday world. Now, let's tell the longer story. So you are there entranced by your iPhone, entranced by the physical world, right? Entranced by your makeup and hair and your car. Now let's talk about this person. This person is, so this is you, put your name on it, right? This will be Jeff. This will be the tragic hero of our story. Let's see what happens to him. Jeff, now you're going to participate like you're crazy, talking to your computer, pretend you're your racist uncle watching Fox News, screaming alongside Hannity or whatever he watches, right? You're going to be that person. So Jeff gets free from his chains, right? Something is different about Jeff. What a weird little kid. He wants to study. He wants to learn what's wrong with the world. He breaks free. Now, what is Jeff's first experience when he first breaks free and starts looking around? Well, let's define it in onomatopoeia. His first experience is, ah, right? Because this is incredibly painful. He has never used these muscles before. And when he looks around and sees the back of the cave, he is blinded, right? This is incredibly bright. He is used to these little vague things. These are incredibly bright and definite, and that just freaks him out. So it takes a while for him to get comfortable, but then he starts looking around, and now what is he thinking? Metaphysics. He is thinking, this is more real. When I look at these objects, they're definite. I can know more tangible things about them. Now, if we are analyzing the world of knowledge and reality, you could say that this realm here is pure science, or the level of science if you're working on theory. These are the theories. This is your periodic table. This is your E equals mc squared. Still science, right? But now we're noticing what causes us to see the world the way we do. What is a better way to see the world? But again, still in the cave. So these rare scientists that are doing pure science, what are most of them? Crackpots that you'll never hear about. Every once in a while, one like an Einstein breaks through and says, we need to see the world in a very different way. It is not gravity, it's the curvature of space-time or whatever. Anyway, so Jeff spends some time getting used to this, and I'm incredibly freaked out. What am I thinking about reality? I am thinking, this stuff is real, and these people are deceived. What is wrong with them? They think shadows are real. Look, you guys, look. These are more real. And you say, no, Beyonce is real, right? We need a new download of kitten videos, right? Oh, man, you guys are missing out. So what do? I take the long journey of philosophy. So I make my way up out of the cave, right? Now let's see if we can draw a little bigger. And I appear in, notice, outside of the cave is Plato saying this is the transcendent realm. This is not the physical realm. You're not leaving a literal cave or going to college to be enlightened. You're not just leaving your house or the movie theater. You're leaving, right, in this sense, the physical world and going to the world of what Plato calls the forms. Some people would translate the ideals, which is nice, but I like having a very different word for them. So you're getting a sense that this is something unique we don't normally talk about. Now, what happens when Jeff appears in the world of philosophy, the transcendent? Now, of course, he immediately grows a beard. That just happens, right? In order to get into the philosophy meetings, somehow you have to have a beard. When you learn real truths, a beard grows in. Now, sidebar. I always make this joke. I always make this joke that if you study philosophy, or in my political theory life, if you study leftism, socialism, communism, anarchism, you'll grow a beard. When you start studying things that are very different than the ordinary sense of knowledge, a beard will grow in. Now, I've said this for years. Now, what happened? This is the best. I had a student that took a bunch of my honors classes in political theory, and she, notice the pronoun, started having dreams, nightmares, that she grew a beard because she was studying philosophy and leftist political theory. And so she started having dreams that she became a philosopher and had a beard. And of course, these freaked her out because the dream seemed real. Oh my gosh, I have a beard. This is disgusting. Well, eventually what started happening is she had this dream again and again until she started getting used to it. In fact, she told me that when she woke up, she would look for her beard and be sad that she didn't have one anymore because she thought, I'm no longer a real philosopher. I can't call myself an anarchist because I can't get into the meetings. The meetings require people with beards. And so she became sad that she didn't have a beard. Okay, sorry, tangent. Now, what is my first experience when I get into the transcendent realm of the forms? Well, let's fill in the picture. Now notice, this is not the physical sun. This is what Plato would call the good. But we're using a metaphor of the sun, as if people are in this dark cave, that's the physical world, and in the real world, which is the bright sunlight of day, but this is the transcendent realm. But in the metaphor, what's my initial experience? Sheer pain and disillusionment and fear and anarchy because I'm not used to seeing things in bright light. I'm not used to seeing reality, the realm of the forms. So Plato says, first, I can only look down because the forms are too bright and I can only see reflections in water, right? This is me drawing water. So because I can only draw a few things that you could recognize, let's pretend that what I first see is a reflection of a cat in a tree in water. Now, what would Plato say about this? Notice, we're getting 4 levels of reality. 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the realm of the forms. What is this realm? This is the beginning of the transcendent realm, but you're not getting a full view of the forms yet. You can only see their reflections. What does Plato say this is? This is the realm of math. It is not a full picture of all of reality, but it's a glimpse of it. Now, notice how radically different this is. So, a scientist dealing with pure science is making one level of the scale of reality, but the mathematician, or maybe even the pure physicist, is at another level. Now, watch how different this is. The realm of math is unchanging. I am so lucky that math exists because this gives me a good metaphor I can keep referring to make sense of what Plato is trying to say. Will your ideas about your ordinary physical world be wrong? Will science be wrong every 100 years, 200 years, depending on what science you're talking about? Yes, theories will radically change. You will see that, no, the ether is no longer real, it's gravity. No, it's not just an invisible force, it's the curvature of space-time, and you'll keep changing. Will math change? No. Math is an eternal truth because it's a transcendent truth. Numbers and math. If we find the 7th dimension, we already have the math ready to go, right? The math won't change, our perceptions do. Eventually, after much pain and study, I come to seeing the forms themselves. Now, what are the forms themselves? They are every ideal that is eternal and unchanging. Here, where can I write this? These are eternal, unchanging truths. And Plato and Socrates do talk about them as if it is a real realm, as if you can see these things. Now, we always use these metaphors. But so think, the ideal of number, the ideal of shape, circle, right, is a form. But notice, we also can have ideas like justice or beauty all these ideals are in the realm of the forms, and the good is the ultimate form. It is like the fire. The fire lets us see the shadows, so there's your epistemology. This is what makes knowledge possible. Well, for Plato, the good is what makes knowledge possible. It organizes all the forms so that it can be seen. So every ideal concept, beauty, justice, circle, square, four, right? Even the perfect form of cat, right, is in the realm of the forms. And so these are eternal and unchanging truths. So now contrast this with the world in the cave and what it is possible to know. So notice, metaphysics, what is real, has an effect on what can be known, or the epistemology. What is the problem down here? If we go down here, what is happening? Change. Things are always changing. The world is always changing. So part of the reason we are so stupid, part of it is our fault, right? Part of it is our little brains don't have perspective. But a big part of it is the world's fault, because the world is always changing. Put those two things together. The fact that our perceptions are changing, our knowledge is changing, and the world is always changing. And then you realize what Plato is trying to say about the need for philosophy and to see the eternal truths. Because what's the problem? If we are down here in the realm of the cave, we can say this. We could say that true knowledge is impossible. Sorry for how that must sound. True knowledge is impossible because, right, things are always changing. What is changing down here? Well, the world is changing. Our perspectives are changing. And our theories are changing that tell us what we should see and what we think about it. So notice, in the realm of the cave, things are only true for a short amount of time, according to a particular perspective, and according to a temporary theory. Whereas if you know the realm of the forms, right, then you can't be deceived. The world will change, but you will know what's true, like the way that math doesn't change. Now, we are going to pretend that I am this great of a philosopher and I can simply see the reality of justice and beauty, and so I know what these things really are. So when you say that is beautiful, I can say, well, yes, and now listen to the language. This is how Plato talks. Yes, that thing participates a little bit in real beauty, but it is not real beauty. And so I can look at things and make those judgments. Let's pretend I'm that good of a philosopher. To give you a little bit of a practical understanding to see this, watch what Plato is saying. He is saying that when we see a cat, we're actually perceiving in it what the true cat is, and saying it has, forgive this language, that has cathood, right? Or catness. Oh, damn, Hunger Games, right? That has catness, right? Or cathood. And so we recognize it. Now, we are very bad at recognizing what the actual eternal forms of cat or justice or beauty are. But when it comes to mathematical concepts, we are actually good at this still. Now, to tell the background story, which is really interesting, the full metaphysical beliefs Plato gives, and it's unclear if he really thinks this or if it's just an analogy, is he thinks, right, that our souls existed outside of our bodies before we were transmigrated, right, sounds like Hinduism, Buddhism, into these bodies. And when our souls were wandering around before our births, we were up here in the realm of the forms and knew the forms. When we were put into bodies, we were dropped into the cave, the physical world, and we became idiots, but we can still remember, or what Plato says, recollect some of our knowledge of the forms. And so we do recognize some of the forms when we see them, but we're usually only good at seeing these when it comes to math. So now notice, we can look at a figure and tell whether it's a square or a circle. We're pretty good at this, but now let's talk more about math. Do you remember number? Think of what it would be like to understand true justice or the good or beauty. Think if you are such a good philosopher that you recognize it like you guys recognize number. Let's try this. Let me test you on your knowledge of the forms. Let me show you something and see if you can tell me its number. Ready? How many pens? 2. Oh my gosh, look at how good you are at recognizing the forms. You recognize the ideal of 2 by seeing 2 pens. That's the point. So imagine what it would be like to understand real justice. You would know it when you see it immediately, and you would say, nope, we're doing the wrong thing. That is not justice. That is something else. So we could say, is this justice? Just like I could ask you, is this 2? And you would say, no, that's 3, because you're that good at recognizing the form of 2 versus 3. When a mathematician, right? Remember, math is up here in this realm. Math is eternal and unchanging, right? Things will change. You can get math wrong, right? You get your proofs wrong, but the math is always right. But think about what math actually studies. Math studies not the physical, but the transcendent. When a mathematician studies a line, right? So let's do the form of a line. Well, I can't draw one. A line that the mathematician studies, how much space does it take up? How much width does a line have? Think about it. None. A line is just a theoretical dividing of empty space. It doesn't take up any space itself. It's just a theoretical idea. When a mathematician is studying a circle, are they studying an actual circle? No, they're studying the eternal, ideal, perfect circle. Otherwise, none of the theorems will work. They are not studying physical circles. They are studying the perfect, ideal circle. All right. So let's catch up at the end of the story, and then we'll come back to the world of non-drawing. I'm so sorry if you love this, but I'm also so sorry if you hate this. Good? So what happens? Jeff starts to realize what's real. And he goes back down into the cave and takes a job teaching philosophy classes, right? He is trying to help. So he goes back down into the cave. There he is, right? Now let's rejoin Jeff as he comes back into the cave and stands in front of you and tries to help you in your little video classroom, right? To rescue you from the cave, right? Let's join him there. Okay, I'm back in the cave. I'm back in the cave. You guys, I'm here to help you. I took this job because I've seen the forms and I'm here to help. Now, of course, you look around and you say, oh, we don't need you philosophers. We've already got scientists. Now notice, where are scientists? They're in the cave with you. Because what are they studying? They are just studying the physical world. And will they be wrong? Sure, they'll be wrong because they'll have a limited experience. The world is always changing, right? We know this stuff. So, you need help from a philosopher, so I'm here to help. Now, of course, you've read the story. What is going to happen when I first get back in the cave? Well, of course, I'm not going to be able to see very well. It's going to be too dark for me in the literal sense, but also in the metaphorical sense. I am not used to your stupid shadows. I've seen the real things. So when you say, look at that, that's a tree, I'm going to say, that's not a tree. I've seen a real tree, and that's just a terrible version of one in the physical world. That's not real. You are not going to learn anything deep. It's going to constantly change. You're going to have big arguments about how to identify and classify each plant and animal because you don't know what the real things are. Anyway, so you need to help me reorient myself back to this world. I am not used to your stupid knowledge. You hand me a cell phone and say, here is all the information on the planet. And I'm going to look and see Twitter and say, none of this is real. And so, please bear with me. Right now you think I am dumb, you think I am not up to date, but I'm too busy looking at the real transcendent forms, so I have to relearn how to speak in your crazy sort of world. All right, so let's start with just the basics. Let's see how good you will be as a elementary or kindergarten or preschool teacher, right? Because that's what I'm going to be like. I'm going to be trying to figure out what it's like to reorient and make intelligent conversation in this stupid world of the cave. So please help me. Let's start. Now let's start with basics. Good? So I am going to present two objects, right? And you are going to tell me about them so I can rebuild my vocabulary. Yes, please talk to your computer right now. All right. What are these things, right? Here are things I just found lying around in the cave. What are they? Now, of course, you're going to say things like paper, you're going to say they're writing, right? You're going to say they're made from trees, right? And that is going to be incredibly confusing because I know what trees are, right? I know what ideas are, and you're going to say these are trees or something. No. So let's start basic. Let's not say paper. Let's go for basic ideas so I can build a vocabulary, right? So for example, how many are there? And you teach me these are two things. Oh, good. I know the form of two. Yes, that makes sense. These are two. Good. What else can you tell me? They're white. Okay. Color, right? So the bulk of these things are white. And now notice how I can take that knowledge and apply it to other things because I'm building up how forms apply down here in the physical world of the cave. So I can say, yes, that's two. I can say, yes, these are two things, right? Oh, good. I can hold up two fingers. Brilliant, right? White. I can say, okay, look, white. All right, that wall is pretty much white. Yes, right? This is not white, but this is pretty much white. Oh, I get it, right? And then what else can you say? What is it? A rectangle. And that refers to shape. Okay, I know what an actual rectangle is. This is how you people in the world use the word rectangle. I get it, rectangle. That wall is a rectangle. These glasses are kind of a rectangle. Ah, good. Now I'm starting to learn things. All right, so let me try this. So let me apply your knowledge and see what it's like to have real knowledge and try to translate it into the cave. All right. So first, let's try to get your idea down of white. All right. So what color am I? What color is my skin? I'm white? Okay, that makes no sense at all. I'm probably peach or tan gray or something. That is so weird. But you call that white. That makes no sense at all. And then you're going to tell me a chihuahua is a dog. That makes no sense at all. All right, I'm going to try to figure this out. All right, so let's focus on shape. All right, so here we go. This, you tell me, is a rectangle. Good, right? So this is what you call a rectangle. All right, let me try to draw a rectangle so that I can get this down. All right, so forgive me. Let me get this right. All right, so according to you, that is a rectangle. Can you see it? What? That's not a rectangle? But that's what you told me. Look at this thing. Look at your piece of paper, right? Look at it. What do you see? I saw that. Okay, wait, what did you say? I'm holding it wrong? So perspective matters? Oh my gosh. All right, let me try to hold it correctly and let me try to draw rectangle. Now, I know what one really is, but you're telling me this cave has rectangles. I don't see one. Let me try again. All right. Whew, now I got it. All right. So now I'm learning how to use the word rectangle. There it is. There's a rectangle. What? That's what you showed me. Look. What do you see? I'm holding up your rectangle and I just drew what I saw. What do you see? That's what I saw too. What? Wait, what's wrong? Oh, I have the wrong perspective. Is this what you call sin? Where people act naturally and you say, that's sin, you're doing it wrong? Oh my gosh, the cave world makes no sense. All right. So I go through this for some time and I start to learn words like two and rectangle, right? And white. Good. All right, so I'm doing good. Back to two white rectangles. All right, so now I'm a smart person. I use words like you do. All right, so now some time passes. What happens? Well, ordinary things happen. Things get used, perspectives change, right? Oh, you're telling me that I need to clean myself a little bit, right? And so, again, I have two white rectangles, right? You told me these were two white rectangles. Wait, what? They're not? Why? What's wrong? I've got the perspective. You told me to hold them right in front of me. I am two white rectangles. Oh, what's wrong? The world always changes. What was a rectangle isn't a rectangle anymore. It's no longer white. It's no longer two. Why? Because things just change. That is the realm of the cave. You can't know anything because things are always changing. Good. All right. So fast forward. I've spent a lot of time relearning your language, and I look around the world. And I see, right now, notice I'm older, right? I see Catherine Zeta-Jones, right? If you don't know who she is, look her up. Oh, she's pretty. And you tell me to use words like this to sound cool. You say, ooh, I want to hit that, right? What the hell? Why would I want to punch her? Right? That makes no sense. She's so cute, right? No, you say that. All right. So that is an appropriate thing to say when you see an attractive female. Oh, great. Good. Now, how long will that be true? Will that be true 50 years from now? Wait, what? You call that necrophilia? Right? Because she'll be dead? Oh, so even beauty doesn't last very long in your world. All right. So this is getting really confusing. Let's try this. Let's say that I am walking around one day and I see a person like me, right? Sloppy, little bit of a beard, right? Talking to someone that is, let's say, well-dressed. Good? And as I'm watching, I see, right, the well-dressed guy hand the sloppy guy some money. Now, let's try to understand this from cave lack of perspective. What do you say? You don't know what to say. Because perspective change and our ideas about what good and bad is and how people should act is constantly changing. So, what do you say? You say, some of you would say, oh, that was good, right? That participates in the form of the good. He is helping that guy with charity, right? Look at him. Probably a philosophy major, right? He needs help. That's good. But notice even then, because you disagree about what is good and what is justice, some of you would say, that's bad. He's just going to use it for bad things, right? You're just making him more dependent on charity. And you guys disagree and yell at each other about it. Well, let's just watch the story longer. Then we see what actually happened if we use some more time, that things will change. What happens? This guy now hands the well-dressed guy a bottle of pills. Oh, now it's bad because it's a drug deal. This guy's a drug addict, right? And he's supporting drug culture. Oh, that's terrible. Well, we're still going to argue about that. You're going to say, well, it depends. It's not his fault. It's an addiction problem. Oh, it's totally his fault. He needs to learn personal responsibility, right? He can't take advantage of our health care, whatever, right? And you're going to argue. Oh, but wait, there's more to the story. What we actually find out, if we look carefully, is these are drugs that are unapproved by the drug association, but they're actually going to help this guy with cancer or HIV, and just the drug companies won't sell them or they're too expensive. And so now he helps him. Now what do we get again? You would say, oh my gosh, okay, now I understand that it's good. Or you have crazy political ideas. Who knows what you think? You might think that's bad, it's illegal, right? Or might be dangerous, or we need to trust the ADA, whatever. Very different views of things. So what is it like to be a philosopher? Let me tell you 2 stories just for fun. And please, story time, right? It should be mostly story time in here. First, the first person historically that we refer to as a philosopher is someone in the ancient Mediterranean region that was named Thales. We pronounce it Thales if you want to look it up. He was the first person known as a philosopher. Now, we would say more of a scientist than philosopher, but remember, we invented all the sciences, and so he did this work on things like astronomy, right, geography, mathematics, but philosophy until those divided off. Now, Thales was walking around one night and he was mapping the stars, like the rotations of the stars in the sky, and he was doing real astronomy work. Now, by the way, Thales actually predicted the circumference of the Earth. Yes, he knew the Earth was round, and he actually predicted by triangulating shadow the curvature of the Earth, and he got pretty close of how big the Earth is. Amazing. This guy is just brilliant, right? No telescopes, right? Nothing like this. And he was doing this sort of work. Anyway, one day he was paying so much attention to the stars and their movement that he fell into a pit. And this became known as the first philosopher. What did people say? Oh, there goes that philosopher. They don't even know how to walk. Don't hire one to teach your kids, right? This is brilliant. Anyway, now he did get the last laugh. in creating what we would call an almanac based on weather and stars and seasons. He predicted oil harvests, right? And sorry, olive oil harvests and these kinds of oils, not fuel for cars, right? But he predicted oil harvests and became wealthy, right? He got the last laugh, a rich philosopher that could afford plenty of pizzas. All right, one more story. Now, let's go back, let's say 300 years, good? And you are a sailor. Here you are, let's paint the picture. You are about to leave for a trip to the Americas. You are going to try to get what? Salt, pepper, gold. You're probably selling slaves, right? Yay, capitalism, right? Whatever makes a profit. Anyway, you're about to take the trip to the Americas, right? And you are a salty, well-seasoned in sailor. Here's what happens. You are on the dock loading up provisions for your trip, and then the proprietor, the owner of the ship, your boss, comes to you at the dock with terrible news, right? He comes to you, you sailors, you're getting ready for a big, huge trip, right? It's going to be your livelihood, right? This is where you're going to make all your money. And he says this, guys, I have terrible news. Terrible news, our dear captain is sick, right? Let me try to be historically accurate. He has consumption or rickets or scurvy or whatever they call things, right? And we don't know if he's going to make it. We are boring holes in his skull. Sorry, that was much earlier, right? We are bloodletting him. We are, heating him nearly to death to try to cure him. We are sticking our dirty hands into his stomach to try to help him. Whatever we're doing that will probably kill him. By the way, does medicine change radically every 100 years? Yes. Your kids are going to laugh at what you do with medicine right now. What? Brushing your teeth with what? Right? How do you treat cancer? You kill all the cells around it? They're going to think you're crazy. But again, no perspective. You live in the cave, right? That's how medicine works. Anyway, back to the story. So I am so sorry, guys, right? Our sweet captain won't be able to make the journey, so I've hired a new captain, right? You're like, what? What's wrong with Cap, right? Damn, cuss, right? That's how you talk. That's how you talk today. And here is our new captain. Now, you guys, I have put so much of my wealth in this. This is a big deal to me. And to make it up to you, I am doubling your salary for this trip. The reason I can double your salary is because our new captain says he can get there and back in half the time. Now, we can't wait for the captain because our provisions will rot. We have to leave today. But I've hired a new captain. Let me introduce him. And out comes Jeff. Let me make it short. I really am. Out comes this little guy. Pretend I'm clean shaven. I don't have a sailor beard. And I'm even more out of shape than I am now. Right? Hi. Right? I can't wait to be a captain of the ship. Now, you're a sailor. You believe in what? Right? Practical experience. Good? So you ask him, how many times have you taken the trip to the Americas? Right? And you say, he says, none. I've never been on a boat before. I am so excited. Now, what are you thinking? You believe in business and experience, and so you're thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to die, right? We are taking the trip to the Americas from, Spain, France, Portugal, or whatever, right? And this guy has never been, and he's in charge. All right. Again, the owner of the ship says, double your salary. I trust this guy. I am putting all of my wealth on this journey, right? Trust him. He's a mathematician, right? You're like, what? Did he say magician? We don't know what that is, right? We don't know philosophy or anything, right? We're sailors. We're real people, right? In the cave. Now, you leave on your journey, and which route do you take? Now notice, your usual route would be to follow the coastline until you see this little island or rock formation, and then you go out, and then you go until you find this island, and you mark your way to the Americas by looking for landmarks. Because seeing is believing, you trust only what you see. You're a scientist in that sense, you think, right? What does this guy do? He sends you straight out into the open ocean, right? And what are you thinking? We are going to die. We're going to fall off the face of the earth. Maybe you think that, right? We better start praying, right? We are going to die. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. So you go to confront him. And where is he? Asleep. It is the daytime, right? That's not when you navigate, so he's asleep. And he is smart enough, philosophers know what you people are like, he has put guards in front of his cabin so you can't get in and wake him. He needs to sleep during the daytime, and you are freaking out. You ask the guy up in the crow's nest, what do you see? And he says the worst thing you could ever imagine. I don't see anything, right? Or double negative. I don't see nothing. And you're freaking out. Night falls. And finally, your navigator, you don't know that word, your magician, right, comes out. What does he do? He gets a piece of paper, right? What is that for, right? He has some pens. He's making drawings on these little pictures. He's getting out scissors and he's drawing little circles, right? And he's looking up at the sky and using some weird metal device, right? Some UFO artifact. And he's looking at things, drawing little circles and lines on a piece of picture like little kids would do, right? And then he goes to the wheel of the ship, changes it this much, and goes back to his cabin. He didn't even look at the horizon or anything. Yeah. What do you do? Well, what is he doing? He is navigating using what? The stars. Because the stars give you a fixed reference. There is fog, there is night, there are tides, right? There's erosion. You can't trust what's in the sea and on the horizon every day. That stuff is changing and your perspective changes. He is using, let's say, the North Star. He knows where that is. It's a permanent, unchanging matter of the sky. So he's navigating a perfect straight line to get to the Americas. You are going to get there in at least half the time, and you are going to be much safer than following islands where you can run aground. But what do? You mutiny, you attack the guy, break into his cabin, throw him overboard. Now you don't know, but he's a surfer, so he just swims his way to an island and he's fine. What happens to you? You all run ashore somewhere as you're trying to find islands and you're all dead. Sorry, you drowned because you didn't trust the philosopher. Do you see what philosophers are? They are trying to guide you to unchanging truths, and you will throw them overboard while you're making your pizza joke. Thanks.